By Wednesday morning, we were beginning our third day of Malibu repairs after I drove at 950 miles home from Florida. While the air conditioning compressor is a parts failure that's relatively common to this style of compressor, the issue with the front spindle and front brakes was an installation error. Thankfully, I've got parts that I ordered from my Monte Carlo that we can rob hardware out of to get the Malibu properly repaired. Since Tanner has a dentist appointment today, Buckwheat's going to be working on the Malibu for me up in the old shop. Meanwhile, out back, work continues on the new shop as Dave works to get the walls painted and finish up a few details for Vicky in the merch office. So while all that's going on back at home, I'm taking the El Camino up to House of Pearls today to go visit the 55. Paul and Jesse had sent me some photos of the car as they have begun mocking up the new quarter panels, inner fenders, and wheel wells. So I want to go up today and visit and see for myself how well these parts actually fit the car. Obviously, the car means a lot to me and my family. And the last thing that I want is a bunch of sheet metal that doesn't fit properly that has to be cut up and manipulated to fit the car. When we started this whole process with the 55, I started looking carefully into sheet metal suppliers. I started posting some questions online, and I ended up getting a phone call from GM Scene Magazine. That led to a conference call between me, GM Scene Magazine, and the owner of Golden Star Restoration Parts. Now, Paul, the owner of Golden Star, offered to help me with parts on this car if we could document the installation up at the body shop, which I agreed to on one condition: that if any of the parts didn't fit correctly, that I would not be obligated to use them or in any way, shape, or form mislead anyone about our experiences with the parts. And this is partially why we made the trip to the Detroit Autorama to visit the 50 million tribute car. After visiting the Golden 55 up in Detroit, I felt better, but I've still got reservations. So this is looking a little bit better since the last time I was here.
Yeah. It's still gonna come on and off like 4 more times.
Oh, for sure.
It's starting to look like a full car again. The fitment is so nice.
So this is what I was really worried about. When Golden Star stepped up to the plate and said, hey, we'd like to help you with this project, I'm like, Golden Star? That doesn't sound like a name that I really recognize. You know what I'm saying? So I was really concerned. And I was right up front with them. I'm like, listen, if this stuff doesn't fit, don't expect me to make out like the stuff just fits right on there, because I've been in that position before, you know what I mean?
Yep. Most of the time. That's
Yeah.
how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel after you get the stuff, it's like, how can I like take and then also
Right.
You have to be honest. So
Right.
It's hard.
This stuff, it's not made from the same dies that the original stuff was. What they do is they take cars and ship them to Taiwan and dismantle them and remake the dies off what the best sheet metal they can find.
Gotcha.
And sometimes that sheet metal may have been worked at a body shop years ago and they didn't know it, you know.
Yep.
So it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect like the original GM sheet metal.
It's close.
But
these ones are close.
It's really close.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I'm really happy with them.
Are you really?
Yeah, majority of the time I gotta chop and I gotta really fine tune these edges and where everything butts up to. But
the curvatures
and the body lines. But even on these back pieces, everything fits really nice. And
that's just
I'm
a
surprised.
preliminary fit. And
yeah.
You can tell, like when you take things out.
Even the inners,
especially with measurements, you
and
can really
bigger
see.
Bigger pieces always seem to like fit. Like
oh yeah, so I was really intrigued when you sent me that picture of the inner fender and the inner fender well. Mm-hmm. That stuff fit pretty good too.
Oh yeah, that's what I was nervous about, because remember I talked to you about if we were cool with just sectioning, cutting that wheelhouse and leaving that inner.
Right, I remember you said that.
Because we'd have access to both sides, so we could sandblast and paint it. But Jesse, he wanted to replace the whole panel since we had it, and thankfully it fits great. So
one thing that you just mentioned to me a minute ago was the window regulators, which they were a mess in this car. And if you would roll the window down, good luck getting it back up because it would fall out.
Gotcha.
So you guys are planning on rebuilding the window regulators too?
Oh yeah.
So the windows will actually roll up and down the way they're supposed to.
So unless they're bent, in which case I'll need you to buy a couple more.
Yeah.
But we should be able to sandblast, epoxy, paint.
Okay.
And then put new rollers on them, and that's all you need to do, right?
And
He's the one that does
lube them up, and I do
yeah, he's like, I found this newfound love for rebuilding window regulators. I said, I know he's not being real with me now.
I get tired of messing with them, and they're all janky, and then like we're putting a car together, and everything's janky, and we're trying to get a window up, and I'm like, if I would have just rebuilt them
every single time.
So
we'll sprinkle in doing that, but like
I'm doing it every time now. Yeah, I'm done with it. Oh yeah.
It's so satisfying.
While I was down at Restoration World, I noticed that they have window regulator kits down there. I think they've even got complete kits. I'll have to look. Maybe we ought to take a little field trip down there sometime.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because I saw a lot of hardware down there that you guys...
Oh yeah.
I think we could use a couple things.
Yeah. There's a lot of really nice stuff down there. Yeah, the specialty clips, and you guys have never been there?
No.
Let's do a little field trip. We'll take the class down there.
Yeah, let's do it. Take the kids down.
Take the kids on a little trip.
Yeah.
I like that.
Later that afternoon, when I got back from the body shop, Jeremy was just about finished working on the Malibu for the day. He had the air conditioning turned on and was getting ready to start charging the system when I pulled up. At this point, he's still struggling to get the air conditioning to get cold, and he also noticed that the heater core is starting to leak. So we've still got problems there, but at least the braking system's put back together and the car is once again drivable, and I can get it out of the shop and off the lift. After cleaning the car up a little bit in the shop with some Jax wax and doing some detail work, I decided to take the car out for a test drive to make sure the brakes work fine and that it still steers properly, because replacing a front spindle can have an effect on the front end alignment. And since I'm on my third aeromotive sending unit in the fuel tank, me and June Pup's first stop was the sheet station to top it off with some fuel. The next time we drop the fuel tank to fix the gas gauge in this Malibu, I'm not going to use an aeromotive sending unit. I'll probably get a new old stock GM unit if I can locate one on eBay, or try my luck with a replacement from Mark. Anyway, once I topped the car off with fuel, I decided to drive it up to Pataskla and look for a place to take some nice pictures of the car. The lighting in downtown really wasn't the best, but our local Chevrolet dealer is only about 5 minutes away, and I've had pretty good luck with taking photos and video up there in the past. So me and June Pup start heading that direction. And although the lighting up there is spectacular, we quickly ran into another problem. The dealership has 24-hour security on hand. It didn't take long for them to make contact with me. My goal was for June Pup not to make contact with him. So we decided to take our photo shoot and move it across the street to the Kroger's parking lot, where there was nobody to bother us and we could fly the drone easily without any distractions. I recently just picked up this new drone that can actually fly itself and take video of me and the car without me having to fly it. It's just going to take a little bit of practice on my part, getting used to the new system and programming it to do what I want it to do. So the good news is we didn't get arrested, we got some decent drone footage, but the bad news is the Malibu definitely is going to have an alignment, and the air conditioning system still needs some work. So for now, we're going to take a break from working on the Malibu and start back in working on Billy's 55 to get it ready to take racing later this weekend. Tomorrow, Tanner and I plan on putting a new set of spark plugs in the car, making a few adjustments to the carburetor, and we need to make a few little modifications to the throttle linkage to make sure that the carburetor gets pulled wide open. It was about midnight by the time I pulled Billy's 55 up into the front shop, and I worked on it till almost 2 in the morning, until I got a text from Junior that he's about to pull in and he's got something to show me. Typically, that means he's bought another car. And when he buys something and doesn't tell me he's going to buy it, that typically means it's something that I don't like. Now, you all know that I'm not a Mustang fan, and I'm definitely not a fuel-injected Mustang fan. So I figure that probably explains why he didn't mention anything to me about this car until it rolled into the shop at about 3 o'clock in the morning. At first glance, it looks like a relatively stock 79 Mustang Indy 500 pace car. The digital dash and what sounds like a B-cam was the first clue that this car isn't completely stock. It appears to be wearing its original paint and original decal kit. Although the car does have a nice set of wheels, outside of that, you would never think this car is anything more than a 13-second Mustang, until you pop the hood and notice the dart block, the fuel injection, and the turbocharger that now sits where the battery used to call home. So stay tuned to Street Racing Channel, because I have absolutely no idea what he's got planned for this thing. After getting a little bit of sleep, Thursday, Tanner and I got back to work on Billy's 55 Chevy. Now, one thing this car desperately needs is a better set of brakes. I plan on ordering a new set of Hot Boys from Strange to put on this thing after we measure the housing ends and figure out what spindles are on the car. I was literally placing the order to Strange for the new brakes for the 55 when the UPS truck pulls up out front with a box of parts from Strange addressed to me. What do you got there?
Some bolts.
Ah, nice. That'll replace the set we robbed out of my Monte Carlo kit.
Yep.
Although the 55 is a really nice car, there's a lot of little stuff that needs to be addressed. Case in point are these customized adjustable tension hood hinge springs, which are a match set to the spindle I just replaced on my Malibu. Since spring is just around the corner and there's a lot of racing coming up, I want to try and rectify as many of these minor problems as I can before they turn into major problems later on down the road. Rather than waiting for a zip tie to snap and dropping the hood on my head while I'm working on the carburetor, I decided to take a trip into Jegs and try and find a stiffer set of hood hinge springs and pick up a fresh set of spark plugs for the car while I'm in there. As I pulled up to Jegs, I sent Billy a text message to let him know I'm here and to send me a list of parts if he needs anything while I'm in town. Uncle Terry, how are you today?
Pretty good, Mr. Will. How about yourself?
Well, I've got some of these, it looks like that's an adjustable tension hood spring.
It's adjustable, all right.
Well, it's beyond its adjustments.
I bet I got something that'll work.
You think so?
I think so. It needs plugs too.
Yeah, I need set plugs. It's for the 55. A little rich. You know, it's had those plugs in it for quite a while, and that was with the old carburetor too, so.
Yeah, new carburetor looks like the ticket.
Yeah, we'll see.
That and the fuel system, well, I tell you what, it looks like it made a lot of difference. Looks like you were hanging on for dear life there for a second.
Oh, stop. You scare the shit out of me.
Thought the throttle stuck.
I thought it did. Terry got me a new set of plugs for the car, but unfortunately, we didn't come up with any hood hinge springs. Junior's texting you parts lists.
Yes, sir. That's good. You got too many vehicles working on it. I don't even know what this is for, but it doesn't matter.
Junior brought home another Ford.
Yeah, I know, I saw it. Pace car. That thing is sweet. Still got AC, got a turbo.
Oh yeah, 5-speed transmission.
Yeah, he said it had T56 in it.
Oh, it's a T56?
He said it had T56, so it's a 6-speed.
All I know is it showed up last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Holy cow. That boy never sleeps.
As Terry and I stood there and talked, Billy kept sending more and more text messages for parts, not only for Tommy's truck, but also his Nova that they're putting a new big block Chevy in. He just keeps adding on to the list, doesn't he?
He does.
You staying out of trouble?
Of course.
That's not what I heard.
Oh, Bill.
What's your name, man?
Jeff.
Jeff? Who's this guy?
Brian?
Brian? You guys stopped in here to see me today, huh? Or did you stop to see Miss Kimmy?
Well, that's
Be honest.
all the way from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania.
What's that gopher have to say up here lately? Is he telling us we're getting ready to have spring or not?
Cold. That's what he's saying.
Well, thanks for stopping to say hi.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
After visiting for a few minutes with some fans and Miss Kimmy, it was time for me to head back to the shop. Let's get out of here before he sends any more parts lists.
We'll do it.
It just so happens that on my way home, I stumble onto this. Evidently, while I was in town, Junior decided to take the pace car out for a couple of laps. I happened to pull up under caution. Billy's first test drive for his pace car didn't quite go as planned. The Mustang ended up on the receiving end of a very short ratchet strap, rather than one of the brand new yellow toe straps that I purchased before we went on sick week. Thankfully, the car made it back to the shop in one piece without any problems. From what I gather, the plan here is to do a giveaway on this car once the car is a little more reliable. Well,
So it was just a fuse.
it was just a fuse.
Yeah, that's the reason that it quit running. It's in the Holley harness, factory Holley harness. There's a fuse for the injectors and the fuel pump. And so if it blows that, it loses the injectors and the fuel pump. So it shut it off immediately, which is what I felt in the car. And it had no fuel pump after. I don't know why it blew it. We're gonna stick another fuse back in it and see if it does it again. But if it does it again, we'll go back through all the wiring and see, why. But I have had this happen before on the Falcon. One of the injectors was leaking internally, and when you'd pull the plug off, it would be wet down inside the plug.
Wait a minute. No, wait.
I got 6 of them off. You could see that 6 of them were dry, but there's 2 of them you can't get to because of this upper intake. But if it happens again, that's something we'll check, those last 2 injectors. But
You know what we could do?
what?
Could put a carburetor on, then you don't have to worry about it.
You want to line it up with something carbureted? We can line it up with something carbureted.
Sure. How far do we got to drive? I can go from here to Florida and back. I don't think this one will.
It will. It will. I got a bunch of fuses in the glove box now.
I knew as soon as Junior started making comments about lining up with a carbureted car what was about to happen. Tanner had already started hinting around about running the 55 against that Mustang, and I'll be damned if I'd let that 55 go down without a fight.
That sounds pretty good. That's probably the best I've ever heard it sound, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds pretty healthy right now.
With the ignition timing turned up and the carburetor set, I decided to take the car around the block for a little test drive. And of course, my associate had to go with me. The car seems to run pretty decent. Got the timing turned up on it where it probably should be. It's got race gas in it. I don't know, we'll see. Billy's wanting to take it down tomorrow night or this weekend and race it at Edgewater in 650 index. I really haven't had enough time to straighten everything up on this car, but I think it's probably raceable in the condition it's in. I will say one thing, I really feel like the converter's loose in it. When you open it up, it just feels like it blows through the converter. It makes a lot of noise, but it just doesn't really move the car. We'll know more after we make some hits on it, get an ET on it, and see what the mile an hour is and some idea of what the RPM is going through the finish line. I think it's raceable.
How the brakes feel?
The best they've ever felt.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, brakes feel good. Everything feels good. Like, this is probably the best this car has ever run and driven since we've owned it. That's my, that I've driven it anyway, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not overheating, although I do see there's a little drop of antifreeze in there on the floor.
I saw that.
So I want to pull that in real quick. I do want to look at that. But outside of that, it's in pretty good shape. I set the trans brake down there, the two-step set at 4,000, and it gets it.
Did it come right up on two-step?
Yeah.
Okay. No bog, no nothing?
Oh, no.
Okay, because you kind of had to roll into it with the old carburetor, because it wouldn't, you couldn't stab it. You had to roll. You had to roll into it.
No, this thing is right now. It's really good.
Okay.
Let's pull it in and see what this little drop of antifreeze is on the floor. That's my one last thing that I really want to look into before we load it in the trailer to take it to racing.
Okay.
Hi, June Pup. All right. Hey, look, I gotta work.
He's trying to work.
Baby.
Hey! That'll be enough of that. I'm just trying to film.
You ain't gonna tell her shit.